Now, this is a little bonus material that we've provided. As David and Jason mentioned, Airbnb arbitrage isn't always profitable. It depends on your mortgage rate, depends on your expense costs. But we're just going to discuss about what it is because we know there's people out there that maybe they can't qualify for a mortgage. Maybe they don't have the capital to get a mortgage. But this is another way to put Airbnb properties in your portfolio without having to purchase them.
Yeah, we'll put up a slide for you guys to read here. And we love this because we're always, Tim and I, if you've read our book, Fearless Real Estate, we call these alternative investment strategies. And young people out there or people that may not have, Tim, the deposit, you have to get into these alternative investment strategies so you can raise the cash to actually buy your own property. Yeah. So this could be a side hustle. It could be a side hobby. I mean, we had one lady that was retired and she was running 3 Airbnbs for a living. That's what she did. So we've got clients that were doing that. But Tim, why don't you go through and explain on the next slide what an Airbnb arbitrage is for the people out there?
For people who don't know, Airbnb arbitrage is when you go and you approach someone who has a property for rent. It could be a condo, it could be a house, it could be a basement suite. And you make an arrangement with them that you can sublease the place out, put it on Airbnb, and the original landlord is still guaranteed his guaranteed rent every month, but you're making profit over and above that because your Airbnb stays more than cover that rental amount that you're paying the landlord.
So as the boys were just saying, David and Jason, you kind of have to watch out where rents are because rents went up like crazy in the last year and now they're actually softening. And when we say softening, Tim, in some properties, they're coming down upwards of $400, $500. So you have to watch where the rents are at. And then once you secure that deal with the landlord, it has to be at a good rate or a good enough rate that you can guarantee him his rent and then you can make a profit from it every month. So that is very, very important. Tim and I have been involved in close to 100 lease options, which is similar for subletting, Tim, where a lease option, you go out there, you actually secure a property at a low amount, a rental rate, and then you have the opportunity to sublet it for more. Okay, so this is basically the same thing with Airbnb arbitrage, where you're doing the same thing but renting it out for way more.
Yeah.
And the best thing is, if you didn't want to rent it out, you could use Jason and David's company, YYC Real Estate Group, to manage it for you and get the furniture. So when we met the guys, we were like, wow, this could be win-win. I mean, Tim and I would love to be buying and selling the real estate, but if you can't afford to do it today, this is how you do it. You're basically going on Rent Faster. You're picking out properties that you know could work for Airbnb. So you'd have to make sure that those condo buildings are the ones that allow it. Or if it's a detached home, it could be a suite property. We've seen that. It could be a townhouse. There's all different options out there. But basically, you're going out there and you're meeting landlords and you're asking them to do Airbnb arbitrage. And you might be sitting there saying, well, why would a landlord give me the right to do that? And what we love about this situation is with Airbnb, the management is more intense. As Jason and David with their crew, they've got crews that sound like they have two crews.
Cover that.
Well, we are. So yeah, I'll let you go.
So basically, what Azad was trying to get to is, where do you find them? And who are these landlords going to be that will allow you to sublet it and put their property on Airbnb? Well, there's a lot of landlords out there that are really tired of managing their own units. And if you can guarantee them that rent, you'll sign a lease with him just the same way any other tenant would sign a lease. And you can guarantee it for a year at whatever rental rate he's charging. A lot of guys or a lot of people will take that deal, because they don't want to manage their properties anymore, but they still want to own them. And, at that rental rate you're giving them, they may be cash flowing, but you know that you can cash flow on top of that if it's in a an Airbnb pool.
Yeah, and Tim, it could be someone, we were just saying this before the seminar tonight, it could be someone that has held onto a property for many years. And as Tim, we've got clients that are starting to travel right?
Yeah.
And they're in retirement. So if you were going to guarantee them that rent and they know the property is going to be looked after, they might go for it, especially if they know the mortgages are getting paid down and the property is looked after, Tim.
Yeah, and so what kind of properties are you looking for? Well, the downtown condos, as you know, the boys just mentioned, they're great for Airbnb. But we've had other clients that, you know, there's niches around town that are perfect for Airbnb, and one of the best places to be is around the hospitals. We ran into a company that will take pretty much any unit within 10 minutes of the Foothills Hospital because they house people who have relatives in the hospital or they're visiting people, something like that. We also had a client who had it was a basement condo in Seaton, roughly 5 minutes walking distance to the new South Health campus. And she pretty much had 100% occupancy on that place because she had the doctors coming in doing locums, nurses coming in on temporary work. She had people visiting, you know, patients in the hospital. As long as it's close to something like that, you can be very profitable, and that's far from downtown.
Yeah, I mean, we've got clients, Bill and Audrey, we just did a video with them. They actually put together furnished basement suites for that exact reason. Hopefully, they're trying to attract nurses, Tim, that come in for a year. Right. Yeah. So it's like a student rental, but on Airbnb, I guess.
Yeah. And another guy who worked in our office here, he was securing larger properties on the west side, west of Sarcee Trail, because ever since they outlawed Airbnbs in Banff, he could Airbnb the houses that he had out there. People would come in the wintertime and rent the whole house if they were skiing for a week. And they didn't mind driving in and out all day because they were really close to the west side of town. They jump on the Trans-Canada and they're at the ski hills.
Well, Tim, the hotels out in Banff right now, you can't get a hotel room for under $150 a night. And that's for two people. So especially in the peak season, Tim, it makes sense to drive back and forth if you're a big family.
Yeah, and you've got you know, a whole house or a whole condo. You can do your own cooking in the kitchen, so you're eliminating the restaurant thing. So there's various pockets around town that you can be very successful with in Airbnb. So the last thing we're going to talk about is how do you secure that sublease? What do you tell the landlord that will make him at ease and he will go for a situation like that?
Yeah, so you will have to get used to being turned down. We'll tell you that. So that's just the way it is. And sometimes we'll be honest. Sometimes you can't be too honest with the landlord and tell them that you're going there to present that to them because you're just wasting their time if they were not going to give it to you anyway. But you have to get in front of people. You have to see the property if it's going to work, first of all. And then you have to have your presentation dialed in. And mainly the big point here is that you're looking over the property every time someone books the property and leaves the property, and the property will be looked after better 9 times out of 10, Tim, if it was a straight up rental property, because there can't be any damage.
Yeah, and the amount of times that it's cleaned after every single stay. So whereas you could rent the place out on a year lease to a tenant, they may never clean the place.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But with Airbnb, it has to be cleaned. Otherwise, you know, you won't be on Airbnb very long. Plus, it's inspected every time those cleaners go in. So it's a dual win situation right there, that there's always somebody in looking at the unit and it's always being cleaned.
Yeah, that coupled with the landlord getting guaranteed rent, you know what, we've seen it works. People are signing this up, and it's a good way for people out there that can't qualify for a mortgage today, or just want to do it as a side hustle, like we said. It's a perfect way for you to make a profit. And if you didn't want to do the management piece, there's a company like David and Jason's YYC Real Estate Group that will take those headaches away from you. So there are ways around it. You become, I guess, you know, you become someone who could own multiple properties, Tim, we've seen over the years. But once again, the trickiest part is making sure you set that rental rate at the right amount.
Yeah, and by doing this arbitrage, what you're doing really is you're building up your cash reserves. So if you need to build up a down payment to buy your first rental property, guess what? If you're doing Airbnb arbitrage and you're making $450 a month on a number of units, it doesn't take long before you can save up that 20 grand for that initial deposit if it's something you're going to move into. Also,
talk about house hacking. The kid on Elbow Drive there.
Yeah. So one of the gentlemen in these pictures, he does house hacking.
Yeah.
So he house hacks his Airbnb. Yeah. He lives in one suite and he rents out the other suite on Airbnb. So he only had to put 20% down on that property because it's his principal residence.
Yeah. So he could put little money down, 5%. He actually didn't have enough money to furnish the property. He rented every piece of furniture in his basement suite and put it on Airbnb. So, I mean, he started off not knowing if he could buy his own property. He put 5% down on a house, Airbnb'd it to make all the numbers work, and he lived upstairs. Or we've even had a couple, Brenda and Bob, who had a place in Bankview. We couldn't believe this was going on. They had a suite in the basement, they had a main floor suite, and then they had a
second floor suite.
Second floor. So they had 3 suites in this property, and the second floor suite actually was rented by rooms.
Yeah.
So it was Airbnb'd out by rooms. And so this couple, what they would do is they would rent out the whole thing. This was like a 100-year-old house in Bankview, a massive house too. Tim and I bought it for them. Anyway, what they ended up doing, they got so busy with their Airbnb, they actually built a room in the attic in this house, and they would actually pull down the hatch. I mean, I don't know if you went up there, Tim.
It's pretty tight up there.
Pretty tight. So when the whole house was full, they would actually go up in the attic and sleep that night. And not only that, I think Bob went on to doing car service, so he would pick people up.
He would do Uber.
He would do Uber. So I mean, people have to get creative, right? And these people definitely did. And they loved it. Tim, I think they didn't really do it for the money. I mean, they would have made good money doing it, but they did it for the passion, meeting people. I think in the end, they were having happy hours there and stuff like that. And whichever guests were in this huge house in Bankview would come down for happy hour. I mean, it was so cool that I wanted to go for happy hour. Never did it in the end, but so there's different ways you can go about doing your Airbnb.
Yeah.
I guess that's what we wanted to tell everyone.
So that's our little spiel about Airbnb arbitrage, and that pretty much concludes our how to make your Airbnbs profitable here in Calgary presentation.